Would you teach me karate? I don't believe in karate anymore. Leave me alone, Daniel-san. I want to die. Good afternoon and welcome to Midnight's Edge. I'm Tom Connors. With me, as always, is the boss man, Andre.
Greetings, everyone. So glad you could join us.
We also have the voice of Midnight's Edge, Rob, with us as well.
Hey there, little Kyle. How's it going, everybody?
And we also have one of our toxic femmes with us, Miss Lorena Creel. How you doing?
I am doing quite well, Tom. And hey, everyone. Hey, everyone in there in the chat.
Hope everybody's having a good Sunday afternoon, evening, whatever it is where you is. We're going to talk some WandaVision here. We got 2 episodes to talk about. Disney graced us with 2 of those. Andre, where do we start with this? Basically, I guess the concept of what we know so far about the show and then kind of go from there, I suppose.
Yeah. Let's just go with the early reactions and what we all thought. Then we'll really dig into the details from there. But first, I just want to give a kudos to everyone that's watching in the comments right now. We are not usually live at this time. This is a special, so we really appreciate that you would join us. And also feel free to hit that like, because that really helps with the algorithm. And also feel free to share that we are indeed live right now, because this platform doesn't always do a very good job in disseminating that information.
We already got a super sticker for Roger Haynes.
Yeah, we did. So thanks for that. And we actually got a super chat early on as well. So I'm just going to find that or retrieve that. I can't get it on screen, but I can find it here anyway. So I'm just going to get into that right away before we start giving our thoughts and digging into all things WandaVision. Thunderstorm said, I like the watch ad with the tiny Hydra symbol in the setting. Yeah, that was nice. I'd like that watch for myself.
That was a neat touch. I really liked that detail there.
Yeah, that was really, really nice. So let's actually just get it. Before we get into this, I want to know, how familiar are you all with the comics and what to expect from the series? Like, if there are any clues from the WandaVision comics, that would be the Avengers comics, I would imagine. Lorena, let's begin with you. What's your familiarity with these characters and their backgrounds?
With respect to the comics, very little, because the Scarlet Witch and Vision were not my I will say they weren't my characters of interest. The few issues of the Avengers and the X-Men that I would read, I saw like a vague reference to Scarlet Witch, but I wasn't really into her. But I did know of her.
Tom?
All right. I do very little. Rob probably knows a hell of a lot more than I do. I know Yellow Flash was kind of talking about one of the storylines he thought that this was kind of leading into the other day. So I guess I'm going to have to agree with that, just because his logic sounded pretty sound. But outside of the movies and stuff, I had no real basis for comparison. I've never really read too many of the comics, just outside of whatever exposure through various X-Men properties, not very much at all.
And Rob, how about you, our resident vintage Marvel comic book reader?
I read part of the Vision and the Scarlet Witch limited series in the 80s, in the late 80s, and I fell out of that very quickly. It just didn't grab me right away. The whole idea of Vision and the Scarlet Witch, riding off in domestic tranquility was like, I really don't want to see him outside mowing the lawn, but I don't know. Like I said, I didn't read the whole thing, so I mean, Maybe it got better. I don't know. But nobody. I don't hear anybody talking about it in the circles I traverse. Oh yeah, man, that was that Vision of Scarlet Witch comic from the '80s. Oh, that was awesome. No, I don't hear it. I don't hear that. So, it's like I said, these are secondary characters for me. So they're not gonna have the same appeal or allure as Captain America or Iron Man or Hulk or any of them.
Right.
And as for me, I did my fair share of reading comics growing up, but there never was a solo comic featuring these two released in Norway. You had a couple of issues of the Avengers, which I do believe that featured, but I never read those comics. They didn't appeal to me. So my only exposure is like that one issue in the comics where Vision reintegrates the Hulk and Banner after John Byrne separated them, and that's my only exposure from them in the comics. Scarlet Witch I know literally nothing about beyond what's in the movies, so my frame of reference here is the movies and nothing else. So I go in with fairly blank slate, and I really don't know what to if there is anything to derive from the comics, and if there is, what that would be. So yeah, fairly blank slate right here. And with that, let's get into the 2 episodes we've seen so far itself, which obviously is some kind of like Truman Show-ish mindfuckery in Pleasantville, 50s America, romantic idyllic setting. That kind of thing. That's the best I can describe it as someone not even from the States. But I know that, Lorena, you must be able to describe this in much more detail than I can. And certainly I know that you enjoyed the series. So let's begin with you. What's your take on all of this? What are we watching?
Well, I'd say you're watching 2 things. One, you're watching WandaVision. That's what they want you to see. But what you aren't seeing immediately is what I would call the B plot, or what's going on behind the scenes that makes WandaVision not appear to be the idyllic show that you're seeing before you. It's kind of like the Matrix, I would say, and this is what I did in my review. The Matrix is you're seeing what Wanda wants you to see. It's very idyllic, like you were saying with this particular episode, for the first one, like the 1950s, Pleasantville, Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy, very formulaic, and you see Wanda and Vision in domestic bliss. But eventually what you start seeing is a couple of things that make what you're looking at not quite appear to be what it is. And for example, you'll see a commercial. Not a big deal, right? You expect a commercial break in series like this, but you wind up seeing a commercial for a toaster. And not only a toaster, but a toaster built by Stark Industries. What defense contractor makes a toaster?
Well, you never know.
You never
It
know.
was the 50s or 60s. So.
I actually have a question about that, because like in most of science fiction, when you have an android or something, then they are typically disparaged as a toaster. Is that something that's been done to the Vision as well? Because he's like an android, an artificial life form. Is that some kind of double entendre at him?
I've called him
a toaster made by Stark.
Yeah, I've called him actually a glorified toaster.
Well, I mean, there could be a lot of. That's the thing is, before we get into like the feelings of it, there are a lot of layers into the show to get into. And I know there's like some allusions to like X-Men stuff. Even House of M is something that's popped up a few times here and there, and people have brought up. I'm not too familiar with that story. Are you, Rob, at all, to where you can kind of give us a little background on it?
Unfortunately, I am not, and if I am, I've forgotten it. I mean, so it's been a long time. So
yeah, I miss Gary Shandling. We all do. I'm actually meant to click this one though. Yeah, there are
theme the Gary Show. The theme the Gary Show.
There's a lot of layers to this show, and yeah. Before we get too far into spoilers and stuff, I think Andre wanted to get everybody's initial reactions too, right?
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, because we have spoken a little bit about what we're seeing, which is most welcome. But now that we've established that there's some matrix thing going on here, there's more than meets the eye.
Well,
What's the first response? Like, how excited were we for this series and for the MCU in general? I mean, is this something that has to win us back over, or were we already on board before we even saw a frame of this? Lorena, how was that with you?
I know I was not particularly excited about the MCU after Endgame, so I really had no interest. But when I saw the trailer for WandaVision, it looked like something I hadn't seen before. So I was very interested in seeing it. I'm very excited, but at the same time, kind of cautiously optimistic because I was not very happy with Endgame. So after seeing the first two episodes, I really do like this. I like mysteries, and there are so many Easter eggs dropped through this that it kept me guessing. But there's enough plot that's going on, even though it's within the frame of a sitcom, that it kept me watching. And since Wanda and Vision aren't characters I was ever interested really in before, I like seeing that relationship building going on between the two of them. So that's what draws me in, and that's what's keeping me in.
yeah. All right, Rob. What was your initial reaction to the show?
My initial reaction was because I watched this the other night with Mecca, and she's more the TV person than I am. But my initial action was like, oh, this is kind of cute. They're doing the whole Rob and Laura Petrie thing, the Desi and Lucy, Donna Reed thing. Oh, this is kind of cute. But then, it underwent like a couple tonal shifts, and I understand that's deliberate, but it came across as very jarring. At a couple points, and the same thing when they went into the whole Bewitched setting. It goes through a couple. I understand it's a very kind of Life on Mars moment. If anyone here is familiar with Life on Mars,
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. Okay. Where you have, Sam, we're trying to bring you out, and Sam will see something from the real world into his dream world, and he'll get a phone call that, from, Sam, we're working on something new for you, but I would have it didn't strike me. It didn't work for me. That part didn't work for me. I understand the point of it. I understand what they were going for, but for me, it didn't work. And these are secondary characters, I've said before. So it's kind of interesting, but I'm not really in a hurry to watch the rest of it, if that makes any sense. It was like, oh, yeah, okay, WandaVision. I'll get around to that. So I don't know. One thing I do say is that Elizabeth Olsen has got good range for a comedy, and I really wish she would do more of it. She really does. She has some good comedic timing. They both do. And
Where did her accent go, though?
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be like a 1950s. 1950s.
I know, but that's a joke. After the first movie, she
was
lost her
I
accent.
did notice that.
Yeah, well,
Paul Bettany kept his, but.
Yeah, I thought that was funny that he was like, "Oh, look at my wife, she's European," and dude, you're the one with the accent.
Yeah, that kind of threw me.
Well, but a lot of Brits don't consider themselves part of Europe, though. So,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's another discussion.
I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. More than I thought I would. I'm not so sure if it's like you said, Lorena, you think this might be her projecting something. I'm wondering if it's somebody hijacking her brainwaves and projecting something into her.
That could be it too, especially with some things that we saw in episode 2.
Yeah, and that's where I really started thinking that, because seeing things from the quote unquote outside world. I'm assuming like the helicopter and the noises, the radio, the ending of every episode, we see like the remote kind of thing, and somebody's like doing some kind of broadcasting of some type. They're trying to kind of give us something, but kind of also make us feel like, oh, it's like a TV station kind of thing. My assumption is either somebody's hijacking her brain, and they're trying to either dig for some kind of answers while they're distracting her, or she's in some kind of like fucked up dream state where she was like, fell asleep watching TV, and she's having all these extremely since she's got the telepathic powers, maybe she's interacting with a multiverse of some type within her dream.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll come to learn about that, where she's, because like everybody's like, I know, you're not right, you're not supposed to be here. There's kind of things like that they've kind of said to allude to that they're out of place. You know what I mean? Like everybody else seems like they're where they're supposed to be, but these two are not. And then of course, like every time they're asked, where'd you come from, about their past, how they met, they don't understand. They can't.
Yeah, they can't answer the question.
And again, we're like only 2 episodes into this, and we kind of have an idea that they're going to travel through television years from the trailer. So I'm really, really interested on seeing where this is going to take us going forward into this into the series. And I do like the Easter eggs. I wonder if because the time thing with the watch, is that because of the time travel deal in Endgame? Is that bothering her? Does that have something to do with her brother? And like you guys are pointing out, does the toaster have something to do with, the whole Tony Stark / Ultron / connection and all that kind of stuff? I mean, there's a lot of questions we have here. And I think that this is one of the more interesting things we've gotten out of Marvel so far. I keep hearing everybody gripe about the Marvel formula and how every Marvel movie is the same. And I don't necessarily agree with that. But here's another prime example of something we're getting completely different. And not only that, they're using a very strong female character, and they're emulating a time in television where people forget that even though women were in domestic roles, you still had women like Lucy and, Donna Reed and all
Samantha
these other, and Bewitched and all these other characters that were pretty much the leaders of their family. Not only that, but the stars of the show. The husbands were secondary, and that's kind of what this show does in a way. It kind of plays with it a little bit more. It does bring him in a little bit more, like in the, like how Desi was a little bit more part of I Love Lucy, but we're like, like Bewitched, like her husband's hardly ever there. Same kind of thing here is like, and then he even gets to the work, and I love that, where he's like, what actually do we do here?
Yeah.
Like playing that, I'm playing on that whole, I love how it play. And the reason I bring that up is because I love how it just plays on the whole, the tropes of these old television shows, to where 9 times out of 10, you had no idea what the dad did. Like, what did Beaver's dad do? All we ever see him do is read the paper and smoke a pipe. But Rob, I'm sure you have a
yeah, that's just true. Yeah. Well, I can't. We knew what Rob Petrie did. He was a writer for the Alan Brady show. But you're right. How many dads they went off to work? Bye, honey. I'm off to the office. That was it. They just didn't. And then Ethel Mertz would stop over. Oh, Lucy, how are you?
Yeah, we never really got an idea of what the husband did, unless
of,
the other trope is that they brought the boss and the boss's wife home for dinner.
Yeah, and that's what I loved about the 2 episodes we did get. They were kind of the first episode was like the Welcome to the Neighborhood episode, and then the second episode was just your typical misunderstanding, comedy of errors, kind of Lucy meets Bewitched type of scenario. Or am I flip-flopping? The first episode was the one with the boss, right?
Yeah, that was the one with the boss.
That was the first one.
Yeah, okay. So the romantic one was the second one. So it's the other way around. Yeah, okay. So yeah, the first one was more of like the domestic kind of miscommunication, and then the second one was kind of more of the Welcome to the Neighborhood. My bad. So it was the other way around. But yeah, like the magic show and stuff, that was kind of funny, and the whole thing with the gum. But Andre, I'm going way too far, too fast, too long. What did you think of the show?
I think it was really intriguing because just going in, the MCU right now has to win me back over. The Endgame did too good a job at finishing the saga. There's not enough upcoming projects that I'm interested in. Certainly not until Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which this one apparently is going to lead into. So that's promising. So yeah, I have to be won back over, and it should be mentioned that movies like The Matrix, The 13th Floor, if you haven't seen that, do check that out. Dark City, these kind of like mind fuckery things where you don't quite know what's real and what isn't. and where you're like established into one kind of reality, and then you're given like clues that something is way off here. I love that kind of thing. So that's a kind of storytelling that I find intriguing. So I'm intrigued by the concept. I kind of like their execution, and I feel I can't really assess it yet because we haven't seen enough to assess. I'm very curious as to where they will go with it and what revelations will come. So it has my interest. I'm not going to say I'm like a huge fan and this is now my new Mandalorian replacement. We're not there, but to me this was a very interesting start. But at the same time, I can see that many people probably will be put off by it, and I don't know if this is strategically the best thing to relaunch the MCU with, because you're probably going to have a few episodes of mindfuckery before we get to anything of significance. So it's kind of like, I think it might be a big ask for many members in the audience to sit through. I don't know how many episodes it's going to take.
I can't
before
remember.
we get to some kind. There's 9. I think there's 9 episodes in total.
I can't remember if it's 8 or 10, but yeah, somewhere.
I think it's 9.
Well, here's the thing: wasn't Black Widow supposed to drop before this?
Yeah, it was, but it was. But here's the thing: will there be any kind of connection between this and Black Widow?
I think so. And this is what I was going to jump on, because we're hearing a little bit more about Loki. Like he's only in like one episode, and it's going to be Lady Loki or female Loki throughout the rest of it. And all these things that we're hearing about some of these shows and what's going on, they all seem to kind of converge. And I feel like maybe this Chris Evans news wasn't on. I think that what they're going to do is they're going to lead up to a storyline that's going to converge between what Cap did in the past to put back the stones, and that'll converge with like this kind of stuff. And this is going to have to do with WandaVision is going to be how Wanda brings back Vision.
The other thing, Tom, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, and then we're going to start leading to like Black Widow's going to be how they bring back Black Widow. And yeah, I think this is all going to lead to Cap, how he put back the stones and him facing off with the Red Skull. But you were saying, Lorena?
Oh, the other thing I was going to say, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier originally was supposed to air in November.
Okay, so that would have been, but that was still been after Black Widow.
That would have been after Black Widow and before WandaVision.
Yeah, and according to Anthony here, he says, yeah, it was supposed to be Black Widow, then Falcon, then WandaVision. Okay,
yeah.
So there must be, at least the connections must be tangential enough, or whatever you want to call it, to where they're not time sensitive, to where
no, I think that's probably Black Widow and the Hawkeye series are more tied together than this is. That this probably is a separate thing that's not going to lead into anything much beyond before we get to Loki and Multiverse of Madness.
Well, isn't Loki supposed to pop up in this too anyway?
Well, I have no idea.
Is. I forgot there was
supposed to pop up, and who isn't?
Somebody told me about some cameo in this, and I thought it was Loki. I could be wrong, because like that's what I was saying. Like, okay, so is that going to set up then the Loki series and some other things? But then we saw the trailer. I'm like, okay, so is it just going to cross over? Or maybe I was thinking of or maybe he's supposed to show up in the Winter Soldier one. I can't remember now, but he's supposed to pop up in some other series, and I thought it was this one.
Well, we'll find out. Who knows? I don't know. I have no clue about that. So we'll find out.
Regardless, I think the main thing though, I think the big converging point will be into the multiverse with
the Doctor Strange 2.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is all going to converge there. And Benjamin Brown brings up another point I was going to say is, because people have brought up that she can she's so strong that she could actually resurrect the dead. I've heard. So what if she brings her brother back too?
I would not be surprised if he showed up in some capacity. It doesn't have to be like, could just be a memory or something. But I actually would be more surprised if he didn't show up than if he did.
Well, that's where I was thinking. I think that the watch and the toaster were supposed to symbolize her brother and Vision. Because that's the thing. I was thinking about this, and it was weird because
Really?
I was just thinking about this way like a week ago. I'm like, Wanda's the only one in the entire Marvel kind of gang who's really lost a lot of people. Like both people that she's ever been close to, she's lost. She lost her brother, and then she lost Vision.
Yeah, and she had to kill him, and then Thanos resurrected Vision, and then killed him again.
Yeah, so so she's gone through probably the worst of everybody. So I feel like this is part of either some psychotic breakdown, or it's like I said, I think this is all going to lead to a path where, like I said, it's all going to be about the multiverse and bringing people back and, certain things like that. And that's where I don't think, even though Chris Evans kind of said, well, I don't know what they're talking about, I do feel like this is all going to lead up to another either Captain America movie or miniseries where we're going to see him putting all the stones back and what ramifications that has.
Well, who knows exactly what's good. But here's the thing, though, that already happened in Endgame.
It did, but we didn't get to actually see what happened when it played out. You know what I mean?
So instead, I think that's going to be like the next step going forward. But again, that's what I mean. What I find intriguing about this is that obviously there's a bigger story that we can only guess at. And I think it's all going to make perfect sense. And it's going to be like, oh, now we see what they're doing here. But obviously, we haven't gotten to that yet.
But watch like the tagline for like Captain America 4 be like, to go forward, you have to go to the past or something like that. Like I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised in the least.
I would be very surprised if there would.
Well, I think you're right because Endgame was such an ending point that they almost have to like go from there and kind of resurge this thing. And you got the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and all these other things to kind of bring in here. And this and well, with her being technically the daughter of one of the X-Men or an X-Men herself, however you want to put it, I mean, this to me, it feels like that's kind of the platform for that, but I could be wrong. Yeah, see, everybody keeps bringing up House of M, and I don't know enough about it to comment. But
yeah, and I don't even know about the House of M.
Yeah, no, because like this, I do know that she's the daughter of Magneto, and House of M apparently I think is the House of Magneto. And that was also some like alternative reality crisscrossing parallel timelines thingy. Never read it, never will, but that apparently is what it was. So yeah, maybe this is House of M, and maybe this is how they introduced the X-Men.
According to Prince Andrew, House of M wiped out mutants bar 100 or so. Yeah, and here's the other thing you got to know. From what I heard about what they're doing with the X-Men right now in the comics, aren't they like secluded on their own like island away from everybody else for like the last couple of years or some shit like that in the comics?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything.
I think that's how they're going to introduce them into this unless it's some kind of back door. And that's where I was thinking like the multiverse obviously would be some kind of back door. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd be more inclined to believe that. But rather than speculate on what's going to happen forward, because that's impossible to say at this stage, we're just going to have to wait and see what we can glean in the next few episodes. I'm also curious, like, so Lorena, you obviously liked what you've seen so far, but what stood out to you the most, and what do you feel about the take of going back to 50s, 60s era TV, and that whole kind of take?
I really do like it. On a personal note, watching shows like that, I used to watch with my grandparents. So it brings back like these strong nostalgic memories for me. And in a way, that's why I think that Wanda sees television as a safe space for her psyche ways. So using these classic TV shows, not only is it like an era of great television, and it provides for a great comedy relief and all of that, but I like that device. It's like you're so into that story you're so into I don't want to call them member berries because that's not really it's bigger than that. You're so fixated on that you don't, there's things hidden in plain sight, like those Easter eggs that we were talking about. So I think that was a very crafty way of dropping those Easter eggs in without completely taking away from the story. It sounds a little strange, but it's kind of like you're so fixated on the magic trick in front of you that you can't see the sleight of hand that the magician is doing.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. I think that they communicated something to us with that magic scene, that there is some kind of sleight of hand that probably happened right there as we were watching without fully picking up on it.
Mm-hmm.
That certainly would be my thought on that. Rob, your thought on going back to this more national romantic part of TV history? What do you think that kind of like says about where they're going, even with this?
Well, it just paints it just lends itself to that, this is dream world that she's creating for herself,
or somebody is projecting,
or somebody is
Yeah.
placing her into.
Yeah.
It's classic TV is very comforting. When you're a kid, when I was a kid, if you were sick, you stay home from school, you'd watch I Love Lucy or Bewitched all morning. Because the freaking, there was no Dr. Phil, there was no these other shows,
no Jerry Springer,
there was no Jerry Springer. For like, you'd have the morning news, and then you'd have reruns of Mary Tyler Moore or Bewitched or Lucy or whatever it was, And it's a very kind of comforting thing, and I understand that the whole point. I just kind of wish that they would have left it in that world a little more, and that Vision help him, that part. Vision help him, and he helps, uses his powers. Like, how did he? Oh, that's your imagination. Yeah, oh boy. Oh, this wine's really strong, isn't it? Make some kind of excuse.
Well, it seems like every other character is almost like they're playing a part and they know what they're supposed to do. And whenever they mess with the program, that's when things kind of like, like that whole thing. Like, even though she ignored it, she knew he could do it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, are they going to do Gilligan's Island? That's a good question.
It might be. Well, they're moving to 60s, 70s next, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
If they do Married with Children, I'm going to lose it.
Oh my God! Oh please.
Well, technically, that's owned by Disney now.
Well, I think they do. I think they.
Yeah,
No, actually, I'm not sure about that.
I would also like to say that with Married into Children or Married with Children, now we're getting into territory that I know of beyond the mere existence of it. So.
Exactly. But I know for sure that they do. I think Roseanne is one of them. And we've seen a few in the trailers, but no, like, again, I'm sure it'll all play into, like, I think you're right, Rob. It's more of the comfort factor. Like, whoever's doing this, or if she's doing it to herself, she's using the television classic trope, the Nick at Night kind of thing to kind of get through it, I think, whatever it is.
Because the reason the reason why I think it's more about comfort is, and this is skipping ahead, in the end of the second episode, near the end of the second episode, where Vision goes outside to check to figure out what that noise is that's going on. If you notice the cinematography, it's not black and white. It's kind of like sepia toned. It's obviously not part of the program, for lack of a better term. And you have this guy come out of a manhole, and he's got, like, bees all around him. And Wanda looks at him and she says, no. And then the tape just starts to rewind. You just see everything going back. So it's like she's manipulating. So whoever is trying to, I guess, keep her on the program, she's just like, no. And she's just like fighting against that.
Yeah, because it appears that she doesn't want to wake up, that some subconscious part of her knew exactly what this is. And this is about to bring me into something really horrible. And I think I'd much rather just stay where I am. Thank you very much. So I'm going to
Yeah.
rewind and make
Yep.
myself forget about that.
Yeah, and
So
that's
it would appear that she's ultimately the one creating this world. And that
Yeah.
actually gives me one more question. Is the Vision really there?
that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, because he's deader than Elvis, right?
Well, going back to the guy coming out of the manhole, going by Marvel characters, X-Men characters, whatnot, could that be Swarm, Rob?
I
mean,
don't
he's
know.
not really an X-Men character, but that's
Well-
the only one that I know of that has anything to do with bees.
Well, the logo that he's wearing, we're getting into spoiler territory. Is this
Yeah, we're
labeled?
already put no whinings. We're gonna
Yeah.
be talking.
Okay. The organization that he's wearing the logo of is one called SWORD.
Right.
Sentient World Observation Response Department, which is just the interstellar version of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right. I'm just trying to
Uh,
figure out where the bees would come
That
from.
I didn't know.
I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea because Swarm Marvel character. Maybe I don't know.
That just looks strange, having a bee
So-
creature come out of a manhole. That was just kind of weird to me.
Was Swarm in like that animated series, the like his Spider-Man and Friends or whatever, where he was like with Iceman and stuff? Because I
No,
think I saw
that's-
it. Okay.
Not to my knowledge. At
It
least.
said he's been part of the Sinister Six and a couple other things here. He's got ties to Yahtzees. So
The people of extreme differences of opinion. Is that
yeah.
No, the people behind the local German political dispute back there in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
No,
That's
it's probably nothing to do. Yeah, he was on Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, yes.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. See,
Okay.
because when I was a kid, we didn't have that show, but we had a VHS tape with like 3 episodes, and I rented that one VHS tape, and I just remember that Swarm was one of the villains in it, in one of those 3 episodes there.
Jed here says the bees are from AIM. And then remember the watch said Strucker on it too, guys. Don't forget.
Yeah,
Yes. Now that's
Baron-
interesting because that ties in with Black Widow. I was about to say with the Scarlet Witch's origin back in Age of Ultron, because that was Baron von Strucker, wasn't it?
Yeah, and
It
that's
was
where I
the-
think they have.
Oh.
See, and that's where I said
Yeah.
I think you guys were onto something with
And
the commercials.
Strucker was Hydra.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that was also the logo on the watch
On
too.
the watch, yeah.
And that's where I was saying, like, I don't, the time thing was like, I'm not sure if it had so much to do with time, but I thought it had more to do with, like, I think you guys were right about the commercials symbolizing both Vision, and then the watch was symbolizing her brother.
They're negative. A lot of them are they're negative elements from her past creeping in.
Exactly. Like one's her brother, both are ones that the 2 most important people in her life that she's lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, I'm just speculating a lot of stuff, guys. So don't take any of it like and run with it. Like, oh, Tom says it's going to be this.
I just know for me, because I hadn't seen Age of Ultron in quite a while, so I couldn't recall that. So there were certain visual cues for me that I could see, like for example, with the toaster.
Well, didn't he call him a toaster at some point?
I can't remember if he did. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
I
but
could
for
have
some
swore
reason,
somebody called him a toaster.
I couldn't recall that, but just looking at the toaster commercial, it's like, they're waiting for the toast to pop up, and then you notice that it's not quite going when it's supposed to, and ladies looking at like, what's the deal with it, and then it finally shows up. And again, just the tagline, I think it said something about forget about the past, this is your future or something.
Yes.
It's like, well, that's a strange, line for a commercial. It's like, okay. And then the second episode where you see the watch, and I forgot about Baron von Strucker, but when I saw Hydra, that's when I'm like, okay, now we have a bigger clue as to who's in it. But if you haven't seen the comics and you've just seen the MCU movies, I think there's enough doubt injected through those commercials to tell you that there's something going on behind the scenes.
So yeah, and we have a lot of different theories in the chat, which is always a good sign, which means that the writers have opened doors We see that with a lot of good shows. I've seen some mixed reactions to the show, and we even have some here with like Rob wasn't totally like taken by it. But no, I think that there's a lot of places for this show to go, and I mean we're doing a lot of speculation here, but maybe we should talk about what's actually in the show, maybe real quick, Andre, before we get to some super chats.
Yeah. Also, what's in the show? I want to do one more speculation because there was one more thing that occurred to me from Age of Ultron, and it also has to do with one of these spots with the toaster from Stark Industries. Just call back to when we first met Scarlet Witch. She hated Tony Stark because the bomb that killed her and her brother's parents was of Stark manufacture. So that also may play into it one way or the other.
That's true.
That's what I was saying. Yeah.
Stark tech killed her parents, but then again, it also created her toaster boyfriend.
Yeah. Because I was trying to think of Age of Ultron if it wasn't. Yeah, but somebody said nobody ever called him a toaster. But I was trying to think back to Ultron too. Because like that's gotta, that's the thing that also brought on her brother's demise, like you said, was the thing that brought her vision. So, it's kind of a, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, there you go. So like we're all about double entendres here right now. Let's see what you guys have to say in the chat and go through a couple of super chats to that end, because we got a couple and we are actually paying attention to them, and we try to see what you say in the comments too, but they just fly by so quickly. But to get into the super chats, Roger Haynes, he sent us a thumbs up super sticker, so thanks for that. And Goddess of Whim 2003 says, someone I heard said it's a reference to the bomb that didn't kill Pietro and Wanda in Sokovia mentioned in Age of Ultron. I'm all in for this. Yeah, there you go. That's what I picked up on too. There surely must be something to that. An Oilers Workshop for $9.99, thank you so much, says Wanda's psyche has created an alternate reality to protect her from trauma.
Mhm.
Toaster was a memory of Stark's bomb when she was a child. Same blinking and sounds. The watch was Strucker using the stone on her.
Oh.
I forgot about the blinking. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you see, people are perceptive. They pick this stuff up. Yeah, well, maybe this was the right show. And Nicholas Horton says, this multiverse stuff will retcon Wanda's story, especially when Magneto appears. And Adam Wofford says, what would make it better if they went into Lovecraftian elements and weird monster as neighbors? Remember this girl that can change realities. And we'll see where they go with that. An Oilers Workshop, again, for another $4.99, thank you so much, says, the magic show was a fertility ritual. Agnes, in parenthesis, Agatha Harkness, is a witch, and the beekeeper was the Grim Reaper trying to break in for Mephisto. Right. Yeah. Well, if there is, I wonder if what's the details behind that? If that's speculation or if someone knows that. But if it is, very cool, I guess. And HG Gundam Place says, I just started watching and I have to comment on the question Andre asked first. The MCU has made the Vision and Wanda more popular than the comics did. Oh yeah, of that I have no doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Russell Hall says, I'm only here because Cecil's nieces just murdered him with the trash bin live on stream. I love it.
I saw that real quick. I jumped over when I saw that chat. He did a live stream for like 7 minutes and he got killed live.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, that's Cecil for you.
They were throwing shit at him and beating him.
And Rich Sutty says, if Tom is right about his Captain America theory, going back returning the Infinity Stones, then the Cap is responsible for Jane Foster's Thor?
I don't know about
We
that
shall
part,
see.
but yeah, I've had this theory since I think I brought this up right during our Endgame review. I think I said there's a whole story there that we get to possibly see someday, but I don't think so, because even in the comics, the whole point of the whole Jane Foster thing wasn't it had more to do with her cancer and trying to cure it or some shit.
Yeah, she was undergoing treatments, chemotherapy treatments, but using the power of Thor would inhibit the cancer treatments, though.
Yeah, I have a feeling they're going to draw from that story. I don't know how much that really connects with. Yeah, here's the thing, guys. I really don't think that we're going to get Lady Thor going forward. I know everybody's so scared of that. What we do have is a Robert Meyer Burnett.
Hello.
I didn't even know. It popped off my own show, and I saw that you sent me a link. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I think you're coming through the wrong mic.
Oh, did I? Hang on.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's see. Hang on.
Well, I personally am looking forward to Frog Thor. That's what I'm looking for.
Frog?
Yeah, Thor. My buddy Jake Bentley said one time, if they were true to the comics, every 3 years, Thor would either would die or be a frog every 3 years.
You're Thor? Well, it hurts.
Well, I'd rather watch that than Lady Thor. I'll say that much.
Is that better?
That is much better, sir. How you doing? We're talking about WandaVision. Have you got a chance to see it yet?
I did. I did.
Then you're in the right place.
Oh, that's great. I've been very, very. The reaction to it has fascinated me because it seems to be very polarizing. People
to a point,
either
yes,
like it or don't like it, and I'm like, I don't understand why somebody wouldn't like it. I mean, I guess I find clearly there's something bad has happened to her. You know, she's clearly either in some alternate reality or she's in some virtual something or other. But I find it all very, very interesting. And how can you not? It's such a beautifully made show. The recreations of the sitcom world, the music, the acting. I mean, Paul Bettany, and I just watch Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany play those parts because they're clearly just tearing it up. They're having a great time. So it comes through. I'm just watching it, loving what I'm seeing. It's fun.
Yeah, I like the idea of this sort of life on Mars type of setting, where you have elements from the real world intruding upon Wanda's world. Their television reality. We lost Robert Meyer Burnett.
He'll be back. I bet he's probably just having issues.
They got to him. The Disney commandos have broken down.
Maybe his settings were all messed up.
Right there. Hold it right there, Robert Meyer Burnett.
We got you surrounded.
In the meantime, while Disney has Mr. Burnett surrounded, I'm just going to go through a couple more super chats while he makes his glorious return. Rob Nix says, feels like David Lynch for kids. You are not wrong. There's absolutely some lost highway to this.
How wooed.
How wooed.
And he's back.
Yeah, you were saying intruding on Wanda's world, and then suddenly my world disappeared.
Is that the magic word? Say the magic word, $100. You know.
That was because Rob was talking negative about it, and then Disney got the wrong one.
Dang it!
No, I mean, I look. If nothing else, it's very audacious what they're doing, and I'm sure as this mystery is revealed, I think by the time I even tweeted out, I said, I bet by the time we all get to episode 5 and 6, we're going to be like, this is awesome.
I'm already engaged.
We were all asking, are they eventually going to do Married with Children in this television dreamscape? Like that one.
I'm curious as how far they go up. I mean, I know that the reviewers have seen, the press got to see the 3rd episode that looks it's Partridge Family-esque, Brady Bunch-esque. But I other than that, I'm curious to see where it goes.
Okay, so they're kind of bypassing the 60s, later 60s, and jumping into the 70s, then it sounds like. Because, I mean, I remember from the previews, I know we get like a Roseanne one. People were saying Modern Family was another one that they had in there.
I would say they dipped into the 60s a little bit with Bewitched. 'Cause
Little
wasn't
bit.
Bewitched
Yeah, I
in
suppose.
black and white, and then they started doing episodes in color too?
Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
like the Dick Van Dyke Show is 61,
True.
and then
True.
Bewitched is, what, mid 60s.
I was thinking kind of I Love Lucy as well in that first episode a little bit too.
Yeah.
Just kind of mixed between the two. And then you had like yeah. And did you know they even had Dick Van Dyke as a consultant on this?
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I
Dick
have to
Van-
say, in the
Whoa.
first episode, I was expecting Vision to trip over the chair like Dick Van Dyke does, but instead he just glides to the chair. I'm like, I kind of expected him to trip on it.
I guess their living room is almost the same exact like set, not the same furniture, but almost like the outlay of the actual set itself, where the door comes in and all this shit.
Mhm.
Yeah, like they showed like a comparison between the two on this one thing, and yeah, I thought, wow, the attention, the attention. That's one thing I wanted to bring up: the attention to detail in this compared to Wonder Woman 84.
Oh God, flawless. Even the clothes, because that's what tipped me off was the clothes. I'm like, yeah, my grandmother wore that. That's what my mom wore in her pictures that I remember seeing. It's like it's awesome how detailed they were with that.
Yeah, the production design, even when they go outside, is amazing. The exteriors and everything. It's just a beautifully made show. And I think, it's pretty obviously Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to come out before this originally, but it's amazing that this is how it's such a weird, I think, a meta commentary about television itself, how the MCU is now moving over to a streaming, they're having streaming shows. So it's almost like they're coming out making a statement about the medium of television itself by doing it this way, as opposed to, Falcon and Winter Soldier had been first. I like the fact that this is the first MCU. They're really telling us that all bets are off. Whatever you thought you knew about us, we're going to go in a totally different direction.
Yeah. And like Mecca says here, like the attention to detail was like, it did feel like I was watching Nick at Night. And I didn't even think of that, Robert. Like you said, like the idea of introducing this as like we're on TV now kind of thing. Even though we've had Marvel television shows before, this is the first time it's truly been 100% tied into the movies to where, because before it was always the TV shows are affected by the films, but they will never affect the films. That was kind of the whole like line that was drawn before, as to where now things are different.
Right. Which I think is interesting. I mean, isn't that what we want? A lot of people are. It's been interesting watching. I think the response to this has been more interesting than anything else. I mean, I grew up when I came home from elementary school. We had on our independent station, we had a 3-hour block of sitcoms, and I've often said that. And in the morning, we saw the Our Gang shorts from the 30s with like Darla and Spanky and Alfalfa and Buckwheat. Those shows were from the 30s. And then you'd come home and watch this. It was six sitcoms. So you saw like Leave It to Beaver, which was from the 50s, and then the Andy Griffith Show, and then you'd see I Dream of Jeannie and Gilligan's Island, and then Partridge Family and Brady Bunch. So in one day as a kid, I would be exposed to pop culture from the 30s through the early 70s in one day.
Oh, that was a lot of television, at that time.
Yeah, it was black and white and color. So it was really interesting. There's a lot of people, I've heard people complain that it's in black and white. And I'm like, yeah, but the transition will happen. That's part of what they're doing. I keep wondering that is this something like in her damaged psyche, somebody's keyed in on sitcoms as a way to sort of bring her forward to deal with her trauma or whatever is wrong, or she never got over the death of Vision, or because we don't really know where she's at the end of Endgame. What kind of what state of mind is she in? Who knows? So,
yeah, and as I pointed out, we don't even know that Vision is even there.
Right,
He might even be a figment of her imagination.
I think that's exactly what's going on.
But there was one funny thing though, and that was like we saw from his point of view the scene when he was in the office, and if it was just from her point of view, why would there be any need for him to ask around?
Yeah, that's where I'm starting to wonder. Yeah,
and also the scene when they're in the library with the quote unquote neighborhood watch as well.
Yeah.
Point of view.
Because
Yeah.
somebody just brought up the whole thing where he's like, yeah, and so is a communist.
Yeah, I'm like, well, put a pin in that one. The boss kept talking about Bolsheviks. Isn't that why he got fired?
I mean, I love the scene when he's asking his coworker, "What do we do here?
Yeah, I know.
You know, like,
Yeah.
what are we actually making?" Like, and I thought that was really talk about sort of Orwellian or very, very much like Franz Kafka's The Trial or something like that. Like, what is it we do? And you can never get a straight answer. Well,
yeah,
we crunch numbers or whatever. Yeah, but for who? For what? What are we doing? And I thought that when that scene kind of creeped me out. I was like, oh man, that's sort of interesting.
right. When we talked a little bit about this before you got here, and we were kind of debating on who's in control, if it is really Wanda or if it's somebody else. And then there's the bit where she's, literally says no to the guy coming out of the sewer, and it rewinds itself. But you're right. Like, okay, so if she is projecting this, then is she projecting herself also into Vision, or is this her way of being with Vision? And I brought up earlier, what if this is some kind of alternate universe that she's tapping into?
Well, and then there's that voice that was saying, "Who's doing this to you?"
Yeah.
And who is watching her? Like somebody is watching this.
Yeah.
This whole thing transpiring, and maybe if like I was thinking along the lines of, look, everything that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done has had some kind of comic book equivalent in some way, shape, or form. Like the Winter Soldier was straight up an adaptation of Ed Brubaker's run in the comics. I mean, and Age of Ultron, there was the Age of Ultron comic that was very different from the movie, but they're always looking to their comic books to give them their ideas. And obviously, I think the biggest storyline with Wanda Maximoff was the House of M storyline, when she goes crazy and changes reality and puts mutants in charge of the Earth. Mutants are the dominant force, and I really liked that storyline. And if they looked back to doing something with Wanda, I would think that was a major storyline in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where everything was changed. And maybe there's something, I'm not saying they're doing exactly that, but something along those lines where maybe she had done something and she was apprehended. And maybe all of this is everybody trying to help her or not. I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. But that's why I like it. Because I really have no idea where they're going with this.
Right. And I see, like we said, we've had a lot of different theories. We've had our own theories.
Yeah.
Andre, were you about to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, this is actually one of the very rare things where really it can go any way, and we really have no clue.
Right.
So that's kudos for that, because that's like one thing that everyone was saying, that the MCU is very formulaic, very predictable. This, at least so far, is anything but.
Yeah. And that's cool. I would think for that alone, I think a lot of people, at least the frustration I've seen with people, or that people have tweeted to me, is that they don't know what it is. Like, they're like, what is this? I don't know what this is. I don't like it.
See, it's funny you bring that up, Robert, because I saw a lot of the same thing with The Mandalorian. I saw a lot of people with impatience, and they're just like, well, we need answers. It's like, okay, if they give us all the answers now, then it's like, Ross and Rachel getting together right away. You can't just let it all happen, or there's no reason to keep watching the show, and we saw that at the end of this last season. It's like, okay, so where does it go from here? They kind of tied up almost all the loose ends except for one, really, or two, basically main things. And now we don't know what's going to happen. Baby Yoda, is he coming back? Is he out of the picture? There's all kinds of different questions we have. And I've seen a lot of same people throughout those two seasons say a lot of the same thing. It's like, well, we didn't get any story. Nothing happened. It's like, well, did it or did it not? We're leading up to something, are we not? And it did kind of all lead up to something. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that may be the same thing here, is people's impatience with trying to get the answers right away. It's that self-gratification between just having the internet where the answer is always given to you right away, and the binge culture we're used to, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's part of it.
There's an element to this where, actually, I read this somewhere. I don't know where I read, but there's some television executives out there, and they want the audience to figure out what's going on, because in their eyes, it makes the audience feel smart. And there's a lot of people out there who think, and this is like the whole mystery box thing, they tend to think of movies and TV as puzzles for them to solve. So not having the answers right away is actually kind of good is good now.
Here's a good, I like this. It does remind me a little bit of Twin Peaks.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. But to go, Rob, with what you were saying, I do like that. I do like not having all the answers and to kind of figure out the mystery of what's going on and see like these bits and pieces. For example, in the second episode where they get to meet with the, I call them the Stepford wives.
Yeah.
And the chick who's the head, of the Stepford wives, you get introduced to, she pauses and says, I'm Geraldine. Well, from the casting, we know that's Monica Rambeau. But it's interesting, Wanda's mimicking, and I forget the chick's name. She's blonde, big hair, mimicking everything she's doing.
Oh, yeah.
And at the end, Wanda's like, well, I thought we got off on the wrong foot. And Wanda's like, well, I'm not a threat to you. And she says, I don't believe you. And it makes me think that's almost like a security program because she always knows what all the rest of them are doing. And she's keeping an eye on them.
That's a good
and
point.
she gets freaked out when they start hearing that voice, Wanda, who's doing this to you? And she's so freaked out that she like cracks the glass and you see blood coming from her hand. So I'm like, okay, that's a little.
And it's in color too.
Yes, and it's in color, and her total tone shifts. She's like, well, what do you do, with blood on white linen? She's like, what does a housewife do with that? She said she fixes it herself. And it's just like, oh, everything's, back to normal. But is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are saying, this is another thing that I've seen a lot of people are like, well, they should have streamed this all at once. And what I find interesting about that is like, so you didn't get all of what you wanted or expected immediately. So your go-to position is that either you don't like it or you're saying they should have. I think the fact that we're talking about it on this stream right now proves that their strategy of releasing 2 episodes and then doing it week to week is going to keep us coming back.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I used to be a big proponent of binging, but I'm no longer a proponent of that because after watching so many shows like on Netflix that drop immediately, I find that I watch these shows and really enjoy them, but then they're gone from my memory. They don't linger. Like, when I've watched movies over and over on disc or something, or people are like, what's a disc? But when I watch them over again, they linger in your memory and you can think about them. But when I binge a show, you binge it and it's gone, and then you're on to the next, it doesn't resonate with you. Whereas when something like The Expanse this year, which I've just been loving, I can't believe there's only 3 episodes left. I'm like, wow. But getting a show every week is great because you think about it and it lasts.
On the opposite of then, we wish they dropped Star Trek Discovery all at once so we can forget about it as quickly as possible.
I wish they wouldn't drop it at all. But no, like we were just talking about this with Cobra Kai. We were like, we love this show so much, but what really sucks is it gets all dumped, and then for a year you're just like, okay, watching the clock, waiting for the next season.
Yeah.
Right.
There's none of that speculation, and here we are sitting here speculating about the next season instead of the next episode. And that we're missing that water cooler experience. And
and this is providing that. I mean, I haven't seen, other than The Mandalorian, I haven't seen people talk about something so much in that where they don't just hate it. That people are.
The curious thing about The Mandalorian, I've only watched each episode of The Mandalorian once. With the 2 episodes of WandaVision, I've watched both of them 4 times.
Interesting.
That is really, but that's a good thing. I mean, I love hearing that you watched it.
It definitely has you coming back. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's like, wait,
absolutely.
now, okay, what happened? Because I saw the second episode, I saw the helicopter, then went back to the first episode, and then noticed at the end of the first episode, you hear the helicopter noise coming over.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Insane.
Wow.
No, and it is so beautifully constructed. I mean, that's what I'm always looking for. I always talk about this authorship, that you're being given a vision, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
No pun intended, but you're giving a vision of something that the creators knew what they were doing. Like it reminded me in a way, it's totally different, but it reminded me of Legion. Legion about Xavier's son, that show with that Noah Hawley did. And that wasn't the easiest show to right away to deal with. And I really liked that too. And I thought, wow, this is a really, really interesting approach, but I know that I'm in good hands because they're showing me something that has been really thought about, and it's really being crafted to perfection, I think. So they're really giving us, look, they might not ultimately leave me satisfied, but at least I'm getting something where I watch Star Trek Discovery and I feel it's just like gobbledygook. I'm like, these people making the show, they don't even get their own show. And it's maddening to watch. But with this show, whether you like it or not, I do feel that we're getting a really singular vision that has been really thought through. And I can't wait to see where it goes.
Yeah. Well, our Rob actually has to jump, I guess. So
yeah, I gotta jump. Everybody have a good day. Mr. Burnett, always good to talk to you. Lorena,
Always a
good to talk
pleasure.
to you.
Hey, bye, Rob.
Andre, I'll talk to you, everybody. See you, everybody.
and happy
Okay,
birthday,
take
by
care.
the way. No, he left. His birthday was yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm intrigued by this show. I can't say I love it yet because again, it has a chance to really make me hate it, but it's on the show now. It's up to the show to keep me won over and going forward. And I like that idea. I like being able to look forward to something going forward that's not Star Trek. I don't have to deal with that no more. Like Mandalorian's done, Cobra Kai's done, South Park is for some reason just non-existent right now. So this is about the only thing I have to look forward to. It's sad.
Yeah, until we get into the Expanse, that is.
Yeah, well, hopefully I enjoy that. I do hope I enjoy that.
Oh, this season, it's been great, but it just seems like there's not a lot of. I wish that we had 10 more episodes because it's just getting.
That's a good start.
Yeah. I just am very. It's been really interesting what they've done with the characters this season.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, no, I'm glad to hear your take on it because that's kind of a lot of the same feelings I was having with it. And I mean, do you feel like a lot of this? I have a feeling like a lot of this, the Loki series, all this is going to lead up to the multiverse, and not only that, this Chris Evans business. Even though he kind of shot it down on Twitter, I've had a feeling since Endgame that they might be leading us to either another Cap movie or miniseries where it's about him putting the stones back and what ramifications that may have. What do you think about that, Robert?
Or his life, the life that he led, not as Captain America, but I was like, what if he's like a James Bond character? And I would love to see a mini series where Chris Evans moves through post World War II America.
Right.
And, like this, you take us from the end of World War II up through the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And I think it'd be really interesting to see his life, and he's still a super soldier, but he can't be Captain America because Captain America disappeared, but he could certainly do lots of other things. And it would be really interesting to see him interacting. Like, was there an invaders team? Is there a classic Human Torch, like during the time of World War II? And because the Human Torch and Namor, you could introduce Namor into the Marvel universe by having he meets Captain America. The invaders team that was assembled, it doesn't have to be Captain America, but you could bring in all those classic versions of the characters like Namor, like the Human Torch, and do something like that. So, I mean, they could do anything. I think what's great now is they have the Infinity Saga. You've got 23 movies that if you average them out, they all made $1 billion at the box office. That's if you average all 23 films. That's the greatest success story in all of Hollywood history. So you've already done that. Yeah. And if you just made more Marvel movies, well, okay, it would just become boring. And now they can do, I think we're getting sort of I've said it on my own show, you get like a mini series crossover, or this summer is an annual event. So there's going to be one story in all of the annuals of the comics. So, I feel like WandaVision, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man to a certain extent, and maybe more with Loki as well, are going to, it's like this mini, it's not Infinity War Endgame scenario, but it's a crossover about the multiverse, like you had said, Tom, and we're going to see different variations of that theme.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and I just was thinking, like, first of all, like, I was thinking between what we're seeing with this Loki and some other things, and of course now we're hearing Tom Hiddleston's only in like one episode of Loki. And it's actually going to be a female Loki throughout the rest of it, but I don't know how accurate that is. But I feel like maybe that's what this is all leading to, and of course I was excited by the thought of what happens when Cap comes face to face with the Red Skull again. And of course, it's not the same Red Skull that he saw last as well. And, if he puts that stone back, does that mean Black Widow gets to come back? Because, yeah, we know you have to leave something to take something, but what if you bring it back? We've never faced that scenario before. So,
right.
And I thought maybe that would lead into Black Widow as well. But no, there's so many scenarios that are opened up here. But I do know we have a few more super chats to get through real quick here, Andre.
We do.
That have some good questions for us probably too.
Yeah. First off, Alan Reese says, "Rest in peace, Cecil was murdered by 2 monster children on the stream. God bless him and all that sail in him."
I hope he's still alive. I think he's still alive because somebody said they wanted their super chat back, and he said no refunds.
And Euler's Workshop again says, "Thank you so much. The big red gum was the spirit of Mephisto entering Vision, so could mate with Wanda and be reborn. The magic show was a fertility ritual."
Yeah, I kind of saw that as kind of a weird product placement kind of thing, but I figured it had some kind of significance maybe.
And if that was product placement, it was a really poor one.
Well, I mean, they did it on purpose. You know how, like in the Truman Show, remember when the wife is like, every time she talks about a product, she talks like it's a commercial.
Yeah,
like, that's
generally want to do. They generally want to do that positive sense because, but yeah. Anyway, moving on.
No. I meant it was a product placement, like making fun of a product placement. But then,
I think I'm a bigger fan of like the spirit of Mephisto entering. But yeah, we shall see.
Well, I'm not saying that's not what it is, but I was just talking about the big.
And then Sister Harrow says for $10 Australian, "Thank you so much. What I want to know is how do you contain Scarlet Witch after Endgame? She looked pissed off when she faced Thanos." Yeah, we shall see.
Yeah.
And Nicholas Horton says Swarm has appeared in a lot of Spider-Man animated media. See, I knew it.
I do not recall that character for some reason.
It may not even be the same thing. When I was thought of the bees, that was yeah.
And Douglas A. Burton says for $9.99, "Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying this discussion about WandaVision. We get to stay focused on storytelling and entertainment aspects rather than intrusive ID politics. Refreshing, good stuff, y'all." Yeah, you see, there you go. Like these are discussions that we want to have.
Yes.
So so makers of Star Trek and Star Wars, do take notes. This is what we want, not the other stuff that you force us to. And Culture Casino sent us a unicorn super sticker, so thanks for that. And L Punk Tres sends us like a smiley shady super sticker, so thanks for that too. And Sean Culligan says, "Anyone remember the end credits to Avengers Infinity War? Nick Fury was building sword." That could very well be indeed. And then we have a couple of more now after I refreshed. Andres Fernandez says Cap returning the stone and maybe getting Black Widow back. I heard some theories of that in the post-credit scene in the Black Widow. There's something.
That's what I was thinking too, yeah.
And Jonathan Bisiak says for 50 Swedish krona, "Tack så mycket. Please God, let them do Knight Rider." I don't quite see how that's... Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah,
wow, that'd be
cool. Do Knight Rider, but I'd be all in on Married with Children.
Oh, is it?
Like they're more family sitcoms, so that would be cool. But
not just that. I see the. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lorena.
Oh no, I'm just saying it just seems like they're all family sitcoms. So while Knight Rider would be really cool, I'd so be there for that. If they did that in WandaVision, they seem to be headed more towards the family sitcoms.
Well, not just that, more of the female driven sitcoms in a
Yes.
way, it seems like.
Mhm.
That's also a very, very good fit with Married with Children. You had some
Good
very
point,
strong
yeah.
female characters there.
I can't wait to see that if that happens.
Dominic
God, I hope
Powell
that
actually has
happens.
an interesting question for Robert here. He wants to know what his favorite era of comic books are.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I mean, I started reading comics when I was a little kid. I have to go to the 80s comic renaissance when what was really interesting to me is as a kid growing up watching Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, and I was reading Justice League and I was watching the Super Friends cartoon when it was the first version when it was an hour, the pre-Legion of Doom
Right.
Super Friends, that to me comic books were always, they were sort of for kids. That's kind of how I thought about them. And when the first comic I saw that made me go back into a comic book store was Camelot 3000 #4, which was Brian Boland art and Mike Barr wrote it. And I was like, oh my God, it was a science fiction story, King Arthur coming back in the year 3000. And there was even a transgender character. One of the Knights of the Round Table was reincarnated as a woman. And it was a really interesting comic. And I'm like, this is amazing. And when I went into comic book stores, Frank Miller's Ronin, which is the series he did after Daredevil, but before The Dark Knight Returns, was coming out. So my favorite era of comics is probably from like 1980, when the new Teen Titans started and what was going on with X-Men, through about 88, because it was this comic renaissance.
Yeah.
And you saw The Dark Knight, you saw Watchmen, you saw the reboot, the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and everything that was going on in the Marvel universe, Claremont's X-Men. And that was probably, and that's only because when I was growing up, it was the time that I was leaving elementary school and all the way up through college. And I was heavily into comic books. I mean, I went every Wednesday, and just the diversity. When I say diversity, I mean the kinds of comics that were coming out. There was just unbelievable diversity. I was buying horror comics and science fiction comics and indie comics and superhero comics, and it was just, you never knew, and the same was true of like all pop culture. Really, music was really great in the 80s, and it was like I was a fanatical Prince fan, but then I also loved a lot of British electronic music like Depeche Mode and New Order, and I love The Cure, and there was a lot of obscure bands and comics and music and fashion and movies, and all of it sort of worked in tandem. I know it's kind of a long answer, but it was a very exciting time for pop culture.
Absolutely. What do we got left for super chats, Andre?
Yes, let's see. For super chats, we have Emperor Pigeon, who says, WandaVision shows us yet again that the older style of making television not only still works, but works extremely well, a la the Orville. Yeah, there you go.
Cool.
And Nicholas Horton says, as an X-Men fan, I'm still waiting for comic-accurate Wanda/Scarlet Witch. And Bear in the Wild says, you mean the NPCs aren't capable of critical thought? And I do believe this was in reference to wanting instant gratification.
I got my Wanda here.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, this is actually this is made by a doll company, and they don't exist anymore. But they made they had licenses to do both Marvel and DC female characters, and this was like a Comic-Con. I got this at Comic-Con, and I mean it's got rooted hair, and these are quarter scale figures. I love these figures, and the Tonner Doll Company. I mean, they even did they had Harry Potter dolls, and they made male superhero dolls, but they're female dolls. These dolls are great. And this Wanda it's really, really cool. Yeah, so I took her out. I've had her on my desk since WandaVision started. And it just, yeah. And you can see, I mean, yes, it's a doll. It's not an action figure, but, and there is a difference, just so you know. But I love this figure. I mean, it's just a great figure, and I love her clothes.
Did you know I found out that the action figure doll thing has less to do with boys and girls separation than it does with transporting crap overseas?
I would believe that, because when Hot Toys, my beloved Hot Toys, when they first came on the scene with licensed properties, they put out Alien and Predator figures, but they couldn't call them action figures because there were other companies that had an action figure license, so they had to call them like action figure kits. And it was so ridiculous. So you had to put them together to a certain extent. Which was annoying because the Predator has this net mesh suit that he wears that you had to put on yourself, and it was just horrible to try and do that without wrecking it. But I can see that action figures as opposed to dolls.
Well, it actually has more to do with not being humanoid or being human, because they consider dolls are humans. But and then this actually goes back to Ike Perlmutter, because he was pissed about the amount of money he had to pay for the toys coming in from China. So he
Really?
fought to have it the idea that all the X-Men and all the superheroes and all this stuff are technically not human, so they don't count as dolls. So they don't have to pay the extra.
Wow.
Yeah, it's this whole convoluted thing that he I heard about once, I read about once. It's like, yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it's just like, wow. So that's what it had boiled down to, was like, yeah, just to pay the difference in the freight or whatever. So yeah,
it's, points for ingenuity.
Yeah.
And Rob, you're gonna love this super chat right here. Nelson Chereta says, if this were Star Trek Discovery, Vision would be an idiot and useless. Everyone would tell Wanda how amazing she is, and Wanda would already know what is going on.
and she would tell you how. No, I like that aspect of it. It takes, and that's what I love about the fact that it's kind of drawing from those more, female driven comedies of that era. It doesn't feel out of place that you have, and Wanda is a very strong female character, and it's an earned strong female character, unlike Captain Marvel. We've seen this character go through an arc already. And like we've brought up before, where I don't know if you what you thought about the commercials, Robert, but we have a feeling they kind of tie into the two people that she's lost in her life, her brother and Vision. But they've also brought up that it may have something to do with the bomb and a few other things too. So there's like a lot of layers to this that really have a lot going on here. But that is, I thought, very poignant.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, I never thought about that, like Strucker and Hydra and all that. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and again, the chat's been lighting up with a lot of different ideas, and that's what I love about this. It was I kind of compared it to what we were like with Cobra Kai last week, where there's all sorts of like possibilities going forward. Unlike Star Trek Discovery, where we're just like, make it end. Just make it end. It's like the stupidity has gone so far. I can't take it anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Tom, just to add on to what you were saying about strong female characters. Another reason that I like this show so much is that femininity is not demonized in this show.
Right.
Yeah.
That it's like like an absolute breath of fresh air. It was okay to be feminine, to do that.
Well, not according to the Mary Sue, though.
Well, Mary Sue can.
Oh, you're kidding. Did they come out?
Yeah, they already went after it. I'm going to say, by the way, Lorena, guess what you're talking about tomorrow night?
Oh, I love the Mary Sue.
Man, they're a constant source of amusement to me.
But yeah, they went after the whole part about how I think I'm paraphrasing what the article was going off about basically, but it was like something to do with how WandaVision doesn't do strong female characters right because it's showing them in domestic roles and all that kind of shit.
Oh,
but see,
really?
To me, that is such a fundamental lack of understanding of what they're watching.
Yes.
I mean, they don't even understand. Like, they clearly have never seen the sitcoms that these are based on. They don't understand anything about it. Literally, the sitcoms of the late 50s and early 60s were exactly about putting people into these very familiar roles, so everybody understood what was happening. I mean, it was a different time. I cannot stand it when people try and apply today's thoughts or thought processes on something that was made 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago. and not take into consideration the progress that society makes. It's so ignorant. When somebody writes that way, I'm like, you're an idiot. I'll flat out say it, you're an idiot, and you do not understand the text that you're writing or watching.
And they kind of go about it in a weird way because, like, yeah, here's the headline: Marvel's WandaVision tackles time period sexism in a fun way. But then first starts out 1960s were not exactly fun for women.
Okay, like Agnes said in episode 2, I can't do this sober.
Well, yeah, and what's so funny about that is who possibly says that? If you didn't live through the 60s, I mean, the way the social order worked, there were a lot of people that had fun in the 60s. And by the way, I mean, look we had incredible change happening in the 60s in terms of this between civil rights, the women's movement, all kinds of things that were happening in the 60s where people were getting liberated, their minds were being expanded, they were hearing the change of music going from what the music of the 50s where rock and roll started to come into play and all of that. I mean, it's to go back and say something like that. It sounds like you're still in college and you're just ignorant of how the world works. I hate that kind of journalism. That's why. But then again, I love to hate the Mary Sue. So
they just the Mary Sue always provides lots of entertainment, and it's interesting how they look at female issues just from one point of view, and if you disagree with that, you're self-hating, and they won't take that into account, and it really does a disservice. I really hate it when femininity is just demonized in this way.
I couldn't agree with you more, because what you're doing is you're then like, are you going to demonize your mother? My mom's 81 years old. And my mother has always been very feminine, but she's also a very strong woman. She's survived cancer twice. She's lived life her own way. She worked until she was in her late 70s. Wow. And she's a badass. And like for when my mom listens to this kind of thought, she's the first person to go, these people have no idea what they're talking about.
That's what I love too, because like the era that we pretty much all grew up in, for the most part, outside of maybe Lorena, because she's only like 21.
Yeah.
But
at least she's got her head on straight.
Yeah. No, she's I mean, we all grew up with parents where the mom, if you grew up in a nuclear family, basically, where the dad went to work and the mom was a stay-at-home mom, she basically ran the show. Yeah. I mean, it was mom was the one who did, she made sure the house was in order. The kids did this, then, she paid the bills on time. She handled the books, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they seem to think that. And like you said, Robert, there's a lot of women who would take very great offense to the way that they're treating some women. It's like, exactly, Thomas. Mom was boss. Damn right.
Yeah. to kind of add on to all of that, because I think what a lot of people forget is that when feminism first came on the scene, it was about women and respecting a woman's choice, whether she decided to work out of the home, whether she decided to be a cop, whether she decided to stay at home and have children. The thing was respecting that choice that she made for herself.
Yep.
Now you get into the feminism where if you don't do what we think you should do as a woman, you're not a feminist and you're out of the club, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's also a fundamental lack of understanding of the human animal itself, which is, we are biologically building the families is something that's hardwired into us through literally hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. And to sit down and we always want to deny like the kind of things that we are, the people. We're animals, we did evolve within our species, and you can't to dismiss that. If a woman wants to be a homemaker and have a family, I mean, how can you, there's nothing more honorable than that. Someone who's going to give new life and nurture that life. How can that ever be looked upon as being something wrong? or something that's not to be admired.
Well, and that's the thing I loved about these two shows that we saw. They kind of emulated. They took from the Dick Van Dyke part of it, yes, but they also borrowed heavily from Donna Reed aspect of it,
Yes.
and the Lucy aspect of it, especially because that whole idea of I'm bringing my boss home to work and my wife thinks it's our anniversary thing is something totally out of like Lucy or Dick Van Dyke.
Oh yeah,
Totally, 100%.
And I loved that whole bit. And to me, that was like, yes, they nailed it, they got it, and these ideas that just because this is the way it was then. Lucy was still the star of the show. People forget
Right.
that all the time.
Mhm.
Samantha was the star of the show. People forget that all the time. It's like, why do they keep saying, "Oh, it's about time women get female-driven"? It's like, did you not watch Nick at Night as a kid? I mean,
Yeah, I think you fell asleep through that. That was like one of my favorite reasons to watch shows like I Love Lucy, to watch shows like Bewitched, to even watch shows like The Addams Family, Morticia.
Oh yeah,
We
Morticia.
held that together.
Oh, hell yeah, because let's be real here. Gomez. We're lucky he can put his fucking shoes on, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
He's
see,
so distracted.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that these people who write these articles haven't watched these shows. They read about them on Wikipedia, but it's one thing to look something up. It's a whole nother thing to have watched these shows and experience what they are. And I think a lot of the disconnect that's happening, like I've seen people say, well, the shows aren't as funny as like the original sitcoms were. And I'm like, but they're not supposed to be. I mean, this milieu is like a mind warp kind of a thing. They're not trying to outdo I Love Lucy or outdo Bewitched. They're supposed to be evocative of those things, but clearly it's not like they're making a real sitcom with Vision and Wanda.
Loving homage.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it's I think to judge something and say whatever the Mary Sue said, that headline, I'm like, come on, man. Really?
Right. I mean, and even if they do give the show a decent review, I think the whole point is they're missing the point. I mean, the show is called Roseanne, for fuck's sake. It's not called Dan.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. And we talked about Married with Children too before you got in here. Yeah, Elle's kind of the star of the show, but Peggy runs the fucking house. I mean,
and Peggy's a badass.
That's kind of the joke of the show,
Yeah.
She does a piss poor job of it, but that's just because she just tells Al to go screw himself, basically. But no, I don't think they get the fundamental idea of what this show is doing, and I love that they chose this as a vehicle for Wanda, because again, like I pointed out, I think when you were here, is that she is one of the most strongest female characters we have to this point in the Marvel universe, and it's well earned. Yep. I mean, we all liked her character. We all got upset when we saw what she went through in, Endgame, especially. Not once, but twice, as Lorena pointed out, that she had to watch Vision die in front of her, and I think that this show is really going to play into those aspects. Andre, did we have any more super chats left though before we get too deep?
Yeah, we do. John Apocalypse says he was done watching Cobra Kai season 2 on Friday, saving season 3 a week later. Yeah, you have to space it out a little bit. Actually, I can even attest to that, because I haven't been able to binge. I don't have the time to watch everything like nonstop. But yeah, being able to space things out, that does help. And the 70s rock fan says, if they can bring back Vision, I want them to bring back Elvis Presley too.
Uh-huh.
And Scott Purdy says, hi from Scotland. Love the show and stream. And I think
hello in Scotland.
Yeah, greetings, Highland. I think she's in a fantasy bubble universe, and when she tries to pull her fantasy family out, reality breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we shall keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And John Apocalypse says, want them to do that 70s show references.
That's kind of an oddball because you're talking about they're already doing that kind of a thing, and then that 70s show was a 90s show about the 70s. So
They have the mom from that 70s show. That
they
was
did. Well, maybe that's how they can pay homage to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was nice to see her in that. That was really cool. She's always a great actress.
Great comedic timing.
And with that, we're caught up.
Awesome. Want to thank all you guys for sending in those super chats while we're caught up. And so Robert, any other thoughts about WandaVision that stuck out to you that you wanted to discuss at all, or anything you really?
I just enjoyed it. I mean, I've really enjoyed all of the acting, and I love what's going on, and I'm intrigued by it, and I'm most of all, I was monumentally entertained watching it. You know, I was laughing and I was intrigued and I was delighted and it was all of those things. And I thought the mystery that they're building up was intriguing. So it's only it's half an hour long. You know, if you include the end credits, which are really long, you know, and the opening Marvel logo, which is nice to see. That
honestly actually annoyed me a little bit.
Really?
Because I was like thinking, okay, here there's going to be a mid-credit scene. Okay,
right
now there's going to be an end credit scene. I'm like, what the hell? Okay, I sat through 6 minutes of end title screens.
No, I think I checked
feature length for nothing. I checked in the second episode of.
I think I checked online first before I wasted my time sitting there for 7 minutes watching credits. But yeah, Stubble McShave says, does the beekeeper suggest that AIM is coming? Yeah, that's something we brought up earlier, or at least some people in the chat did, I should say, as a plausibility. What do you think, Robert? Do you think that's
I think so. I think there's other indications, but yeah, I think it's all out there. I think but again, I don't know. You know, maybe these are Easter eggs. I don't know if they're leading up to something, but who knows? It'll be interesting to see, but it could be.
Right. Well, as Phil points out, he was wearing a sword suit. Mikey Jeebus thinks it might just be an Easter egg, which, this thing's full of Easter eggs. And I know, I know you said you watched it 4 times now, Lorena, so you probably caught a lot more than we have. But yeah, that was kind of the thing I was trying to do while watching it. Was my eyes were scanning constantly. So I almost want to watch it again just so I can kind of take it all in.
Yeah, there were some I caught right away, and then there's some I had to go back and watch it because I knew that if there were only those 2 or 3 that I could pick out on the first watch, who knows how many other ones were there.
Right. Fat Steven Seagal. Oh, we lost Robert.
Hey, Fat Steven.
There he is. He's back. Robert, you having internet hiccups.
Something is happening. I'm losing. There's I don't know what's going on. So I think I should take my leave of you lovely people.
I was say we're going to be wrapping it up here anyway soon. So do check out the Burnett Work on YouTube. Our lovely Wrench has been sharing that in the chat as we've been here. So that's where you'll see Robert and all his awesome content.
Well, thank you.
And he goes live almost every single day. So do check that out. And we do have him pop in here and meet in other places from time to time as well.
Although I'm kind of bummed out that there's no Star Trek to complain about anymore. We had Lower Decks and Discovery. Now I feel like my blood pressure's lessening and I'm in much better mental health now.
From what we're hearing or what I'm finding out, Star Trek season 4 is fucking filming, so whatever.
Yeah, no, they renewed season 4 and 5 at the same time.
Yeah.
so that was
I don't care. I'm not watching it. I don't care. I'm in protest. I'll
throw out a name for you. That
sure.
That Kiefer Sutherland. I'm not going to say why I threw that name out, but Kiefer Sutherland, I'll throw that out.
I wish I could get excited for that.
I know. I thought it was interesting.
I do like the actor, and I have an idea of where you're going with it, but as long as Kurtzman's crew's there, I'm not excited.
I know. Me neither.
All right, sir.
That might be a Strange New Worlds thing. I don't know.
Could be.
Who knows?
Well, that's supposed to start filming soon too. So,
hence Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying.
Well, we love having the little nuggets you throw at us, sir, and we do appreciate having you here. Hopefully, your net gets better. Are you going to be going live here at all this afternoon?
No. Tomorrow is my 600th show.
Ooh,
So
wow.
yes, it's WandaVision 600. I'm going to be talking to all of the judges, all of my industry friends that are judging the first Intergalactic Imagination Connoisseurs Film Festival.
That's right. It's all
Yep.
coming to, it's all finally happening.
It's almost all the movies are up now, and people can watch them on my YouTube channel. And I encourage everybody to do so. For those of you who don't know, I just one day decided I should have a film festival on my channel.
Yeah.
And without really thinking about it, I go, okay, guys, you now have 2 months to make films. And I got 70.
I've watched a couple when I could, but yeah.
Yeah, there's some that are really, really good. And even the ones that there are people that had never made films before that were inspired to make films. And I would encourage, my goal for the rest of January is to get a lot more eyeballs on the movies. And there's a lot. I even got a feature film the other day.
Oh, wow.
It's funny. I actually got a submission from a very famous director for your film festival. It's a very short film, though. Ryan Johnson actually redid The Karate Kid. Here you go.
Would you teach me karate? I don't believe in karate anymore. Leave me alone, Daniel-san. I want to die.
There you go.
Wow.
You think that could win?
I think it. You know, I don't want to speak for the judges, but it might.
All
definitely
right.
might
Well,
carry the
with that,
day.
We want to thank you for being here with us. We always appreciate having you. And we're going to finish up these super chats, and we're going to probably head out of here.
It's always fun to be with you guys. Thanks for inviting me. Today was just random. I didn't even. Always good to see you, all of you. Lorena, Creel. It's always nice to be on the stream with you. And Andre, always a pleasure.
Yeah, likewise. Always a blast when you can join.
All right, I will talk to you all later.
Have a good night, man. Take care. All right. And Fat Steven Seagal says, can Wanda bring back my physique? Hi, Boss Tom. No. No. I'm sorry. There's only so much that Wanda's magic can do. And that's not one of them. Roger Haynes sends in another one. Thank you so much. Do you think WandaVision will get people to subscribe to Disney Plus? That's a very good question. Yes. I wish I'd saw that before Robert had to leave, but that's a very good. Lorena, what do you think? Do you think this is going to be, and this kind of affects you a little bit because you're a stockholder. So yes. What do you think?
Honestly, I'm going to say no. WandaVision is one of those niche type of shows, and again, they aren't top tier characters in the MCU, so I can't see people. Well, let's put it this way: I can't see people shelling out for Disney Plus on a long term basis just because of WandaVision. They might subscribe maybe for a month just to get it, and then dump the service. But I can't see them subscribing to it. Like WandaVision being the only reason that they get Disney Plus, just because of Disney Plus's limited catalog compared to, like, say, Netflix or Amazon or even Hulu. It's not, WandaVision isn't like The Mandalorian, let's put it that way.
Very true. Andre, what do you think?
I agree with Lorena. I don't think that this alone is going to drive many subscribers. I think that this is something that absolutely can help the MCU, but I don't know that it can drive subscribers. Like The Mandalorian can absolutely do that. And I've seen posters of WandaVision everywhere, even in Norway. So they're no doubt hoping for it, and they're marketing the show in a way that suggests that they want it to happen. But if it will, well, maybe in time, as hype like it gets around. But I don't think it's going to do much from day one. Not any others that wouldn't subscribe anyway.
Right. No, I tend to agree with you guys. I don't think that this is the kind of thing that's going to rake in the swaths of people they need. What do you, obviously, let's ask you guys in the chat. There's almost 1,000 of you. Put a 1 in the chat if you signed up for Disney Plus for this show. Let's see if there's that many people that actually did. I don't think so. I think you guys are right. I think This is not the kind of thing that's going to bring in people, because for all the reasons you guys just said. Now, if this was perhaps Loki or Black Widow, that'd be a different story. Because those two characters are two very much higher tier characters in a sense. I don't know how many people really. I mean, we know of these characters, but again, going into the show, as you heard, we're not that familiar with them. For the most part, our exposure is the movies, besides Rob, and I'm sure Robert before this. So, yeah, I don't think that this was one of the things. Yeah, we got a couple ones. We got some twos for no reason. We actually got more twos for no good reason. Yeah, not very many ones. So that's my thought. It might get, I'd say a couple thousand, like dozen thousand or 20, 30,000 subscribers out of it, but we're not talking any big numbers, I don't think. Not specifically for this. But then again, it is Marvel. So, I mean, as much as some people like to, and we got a big ass number here, whatever that means. And of course, we got the obligatory 69. Everybody's got, there's always one. There's at least one. JPRPH1. I don't know what you're trying to say there, because I'm not going to try and read it out. WandaVision is the only thing that kept me from canceling Disney Plus when The Mandalorian ended. That's another great question. Now, put in the chat a 3 if this was one of the reasons you hung on to Disney Plus after The Mandalorian was done. Let's see how many people have done that. That's a good question. See, there's another part of it. Was this something that, Disney may not have expected to necessarily get a lot of subscribers, but how many did they retain with this? That's another good question, because retention is another big thing, isn't it, Andre?
It is, absolutely. And it's in some ways, it's even more important, because what does it help if you can attract new people if you can't hold the ones that are already there?
Exactly.
So, yeah, it's two things. One is attracting new, but also keeping the ones that were there the whole time. Never take them for granted.
Right.
And I'm seeing a lot more 3s than we did the ones. Exactly. That's a great question. Thanks for asking that question, and thank you for the super chat. Speaking of, we have a couple more that just popped in here, Andre. I think the next one from Michael Roth. I'm sticking with Disney Plus for now because the annual price is the same as HBO Max's 6-month subscription. Yeah. See, that's what I did, Michael Roth. Plus, for Rob and the channel and whatnot, I get like the year thing, and that way we have it. That way there's no problems with, I got to get HBO Max, I got to get Netflix, whatever. It's kind of the business account or what have you. But yeah, I mean, even if it wasn't the price difference, sometimes with the year, you're almost better off doing it, because then when you figure, well, if I end up getting Disney Plus 3 times throughout the year, that's almost the price that I'm paying for the year. So it's like, yeah, that's a very, very interesting way of looking at it. What about you, Lorraine? I'm assuming you got the year package.
Actually, I don't.
Or do you get it for free?
I get it basically for a penny. So there was some kind of promotion that Disney put out, because I already have Hulu. So yeah, this bundle deal, I just wound up getting Disney Plus for like a penny. But I also share it with my sister who has young children, so they're always watching.
So yeah, that's another thing, is people with kids like you, Andre. Now Disney Plus, you're fortunate, I guess, enough, if you want to look at it that way, in one of the areas that does have Disney Plus, right?
Yes, that is true.
And I'm assuming you have it not just for this, but for the kiddos as well.
Yeah. There's Disney are very good in the kids department. More so for little girls than for little boys.
Gotcha. There's one thing to take into consideration. Andre Fernandez says, I have been sailing the high seas for this. Arr. Well, I hope you're using Surfshark when you do that. And if you don't, you can get a deal right now. Isn't that right, Andre?
That is right. So just head on over to Surfshark. You'll know you're in the right place, because they have a bitchin' shark on the webpage. And then type in midnight when ordering, and then you'll have your privacy sorted while surfing the high seas, which of course we do not recommend. But if you're going to do it anyway, then at least stay secure.
Okay, I shut it off before we get his copyright claim. I think 4 notes is enough. I think you get the point. They should really pay John Williams for that. They really should. I would love to use that for their Surfshark ads. But anyway, yes, we do recommend that. And I think this is the next one, if it didn't jump on me. Nicholas Horton says, AIM ain't been introduced in the movies yet. MODOK MCU rumors online. Yeah, again, we're just speculating here, but that's the great part about this is there's so many different directions this could go. And we love the fact that those who know more about this, I've gotten some messages throughout the show. I can't really get to all of them while we're doing it, but yeah, a lot of people have a lot of different ideas and scenarios, and I was really hoping to get Yellow Flash on here because I loved his take the other night too, but I hadn't heard back from him yet. But yeah, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit. Maybe we'll get him in a later episode when we talk about these. But here it is crazy that we've talked almost 2 hours about 2 20-minute episodes. So there you go.
Yeah, I thought this one we'll be able to do in like half an hour. Boy, was I wrong.
You should have known better than that. Andre, well, even with the super chats. Andres Fernandez sends another one. Thank you so much. Here in Argentina, D Plus got released last November, and it was a big thing. At least in my tweet list, but for the brand and their family, not Mando. I think that's what he's trying to say there, right?
Let's see.
I think he means at least, not.
Yeah, probably at least just for the Disney brand of catalog, not necessarily for the
Yeah. So basically, it was a big thing, but not because of Mando. Instead, it was because of the brand value and for the family content.
Yeah,
the Mandalorian was more of a bonus rather than an actual selling point.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were saying here with like, the retention part of it for a lot of people. I'm assuming that's the key. And Chris Cross sends us Canadian $5. Doesn't say anything, just sends in $5. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And I'm sure this will be something you ladies talk about tomorrow night on Toxic Femme, probably.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, certainly with the Mary Sue once again showing what they're made of.
And then Willie Woodward, our good friend, has reminded us that AIM was introduced in Iron Man 3. It's Killian's company.
Okay, no wonder I did remember AIM because I hated Iron Man 3, so I think I wiped my brain of that movie.
I liked it, but I kind of remember that now that he says that. I didn't hate it overall. I mean, it was a movie.
It was there. It was there.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was there. Way. It was better than 2 in my opinion, I guess. But but what does my opinion mean? I guess. But I think speaking of opinions, I think we've wasted ours on WandaVision as much as we can. Don't you think, Andre?
Yeah, I think that we have said pretty much everything there is to say, and then some about the first 2 episodes, with a running time of 40 minutes in total, which is, in other words, a mere fraction of how long we have gone along. And I would like to say thanks to, first and foremost, Lorena for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was happy I could join you all.
Well, I knew you had watched it. I didn't know you watched it that many times. I knew a little bit of your take on it, but yeah.
When you're an engineer like me and you pay attention to detail and you think you miss stuff, it's like an obsession. So.
Well, I'm glad then, because I didn't expect you to have watched it that many times. I knew you had an interesting take on it, but yeah. So we're glad to have you here, and you will see Lorena tomorrow night on Toxic Femme with the other ladies. And like I said, we'll probably be discussing the Mary Sue article along with all kinds of other fun stuff here on Midnight's Edge. And Raquel asks, what is the ME code for Surfshark? Well, my dear, the code is midnight. The word midnight, as Black Phoenix has said here. And hello to both of you. And all of you out in the chat, I want to thank you for joining us today. We couldn't do this without you. Otherwise, we'd be talking to ourselves. And Lord knows how bad that could get for me. Because I can talk myself into doing all kinds of crazy shit. But Andre, anything you want to say before we check out?
No, I just want to say thanks again to everyone that's been watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow, first for Midnight's Edge in the morning, and then later for Toxic Femininity, where Lorena will feature. Plus, we also have like a regular scripted video That should be coming out in if not tomorrow, then certainly the day after that. And Lorena, where can people find you when you are not on Toxic Femininity?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Minds. And most importantly, you can find me also on YouTube, where I analyze pop culture, sci fi, and Disney. I've dropped a review of episode 1 of WandaVision. Hopefully, I'll get to episode 2 tomorrow. And in a few days, the first episode of season 2 of Batwoman. I'm a glutton for punishment, but anyway.
Well, sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, I got to bite the bullet, but it's a challenge to review something you don't think you're particularly going to like. So I'm looking forward to that, and definitely always a pleasure being here on Midnight's Edge. And thank you guys so much in the chat for supporting the channel.
Absolutely. And of course, our lovely wrench Natasha, thank you so much for hanging out. And she's sharing your link along with everybody else's that was on the stream today. And Thunderstorm gives us a great piece of advice. Bye, everybody. Don't fry bacon naked.
Oh, no.
If you do, just cook it in the oven, as Monkey Jeebus says here. Thanks so much, guys. I really want to thank you again for being here. We appreciate it so very much. We'll see you tomorrow.